Sergeant Caleb Murphy's communicator buzzed with an urgent message, shattering the calm of his quarters on the distant planet Feloria. The screen flickered to life, revealing Commander Reeves' grim face. "Murphy, we've got a situation. A group of young Cation females have barricaded themselves inside the main communications facility. They're demanding you come to breed with them." Caleb blinked, certain he'd misheard. "Sir?" "You heard right, Sergeant. These Cations are threatening to destroy our only link to Earth if you don't comply. And before you ask, no, this isn't a joke." The gravity of the situation sank in. The communications facility was Earth's sole connection to this strategically vital sector of space. Its loss would be catastrophic for human operations in the region. Commander Reeves continued, his voice tense. "We believe this behavior is due to an abrupt change in Cation biology, possibly triggered by exposure to human pheromones. It's unprecedented, and we're flying blind here." Caleb's mind raced. The Cations, a feline-like alien race, had always been peaceful allies. This sudden shift threatened years of diplomatic progress. "Sergeant, your exceptional diplomatic skills and physical capabilities make you our best option. We need you to handle this discreetly. An interspecies incident could jeopardize everything we've built here." "Understood, sir. I'm on it." As Caleb prepared for the mission, Dr. Lyra, the base's xenobiologist, burst into his quarters. Her eyes were wide with concern as she began briefing him on Cation physiology and culture. "Listen carefully, Sergeant. Cation mating instincts can be incredibly powerful and potentially dangerous. Their strength increases tenfold when aroused, and their claws can slice through standard-issue body armor like butter." She handed him a sleek, black suit. "This is reinforced protective gear. It should withstand their claws, but be cautious. We don't know how they'll react to your presence." As Caleb donned the suit, he could hear commotion outside. News of the incident had spread through the human settlement like wildfire. Angry voices called for a show of force against the aliens, while others urged caution and diplomacy. Caleb knew the stakes extended far beyond the immediate crisis. The entire future of human-Cation relations hung in the balance. One wrong move could ignite an interstellar conflict. As he approached the communications facility, tension coiled in his gut. The usually bustling building stood eerily silent, its windows dark save for one. There, framed against the alien sun, stood a figure. Theros, the leader of the Cation group, stared down at him. Her feline eyes, nearly glowing with intensity, locked onto his. The aggressive set of her shoulders and the twitch of her tail made it clear this would be no ordinary negotiation. Caleb took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. In all his years of service, he'd never faced a challenge quite like this. The fate of two species rested on his shoulders, and failure was not an option. As he stepped towards the entrance, Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would change everything. For him, for humanity, and for the thirsty alien girls who awaited him inside. Caleb's hand hovered over the entrance panel, his heart pounding in his chest. The protective suit clung to his skin, a constant reminder of the danger that awaited him. With a deep breath, he activated the thin force field designed to repel Cation pheromones and pressed his palm against the scanner. The facility's doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the dimly lit interior. Caleb's eyes adjusted quickly, focusing on the 5 young Cation females standing before him. Their feline features were accentuated in the low light, pupils dilated to inky pools, fur jam packed along their spines. At the forefront stood Theros, her golden fur shimmering even in the muted light. Her piercing green eyes locked onto Caleb, a mix of primal hunger and intelligence swirling in their depths. "I am Theros," she purred, her voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through Caleb's bones. "Daughter of Ambassador Mirinth. We were touring the facility when this urge overtook us." Caleb's mind raced. The daughter of the Cation ambassador? This complicated matters exponentially. One wrong move could spark an interstellar incident. "Theros," Caleb began, keeping his voice calm and steady, "I understand you're experiencing some unusual sensations. Let's talk about this. We can find a solution that doesn't involve—" He never finished the sentence. Theros lunged forward, her claws extended. Caleb stumbled back, the force field flickering as it deflected her attack. The other Caitians moved in tandem, circling him with predatory grace. Caleb's training kicked in. Standard negotiation tactics were clearly off the table. He needed to change the playing field. With a quick command into his wrist communicator, Caleb activated the facility's environmental controls. The temperature plummeted, a chill mist forming in the air. The effect on the Caitians was immediate. Their aggressive postures faltered, confusion flickering across their faces. In that moment of respite, Caleb noticed something peculiar. The Caitians' noses twitched, their attention drawn to his uniform. They seemed captivated by his scent, even through the protective field. A commotion outside caught Caleb's attention. Through the facility's windows, he could see a crowd gathering, their faces contorted with anger and fear. Commander Reeves had arrived, gesturing emphatically as he tried to disperse the mob. Caleb's communicator crackled to life. "Murphy!" Reeves's voice was tense. "Things are getting hot out here. Whatever you're going to do it fast." "Understood, sir," Caleb responded, his eyes never leaving the Caitians. Dr. Lyra's voice cut in, her words rapid and urgent. "Sergeant, I'm picking up an unusual spike in your pheromone production. The protective field, it might be concentrating your natural scent. I fear prolonged exposure could lead to permanent changes in Caitian biology." The implications of her words hit Caleb like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about defusing an immediate crisis anymore. The very future of Caitian physiology might be at stake. Caleb made a snap decision. "Theros," he called out, "a word in private?" The golden-furred Caitian tilted her head, curiosity momentarily overriding her aggressive stance. She padded forward, separating herself from the group. As they moved to a quieter corner of the facility, Caleb kept his movements slow and non-threatening. "Theros, I need to understand. Why this? Why now?" Tharos's tail lashed behind her, her words coming out in a rush. "Our world, our people, we face extinction, human. A genetic mutation plagues us, stealing our ability to bear young. When we caught your scent..." Her eyes dilated further, locked on Caleb. It awakened something primal, a chance for survival. The weight of her words settled on Caleb's shoulders. This was far beyond his mission parameters. The fate of an entire species potentially hung in the balance. Before Caleb could formulate a response, alarms blared throughout the facility. Sparks erupted from a nearby console, acrid smoke filling the air. The other Caitians, agitated by Theros's absence, had begun tampering with the equipment. Time was running out. The damage to the communication systems could become irreparable at any moment. Caleb knew he had to act fast. With a silent prayer, Caleb reached for his wrist controls. The protective force field flickered and died. The effect was instantaneous. All 5 Caitians froze, their aggressive behavior melting away, replaced by an intense, almost reverent focus on Caleb. The unfiltered scent of his pheromones permeated the air, creating a palpable shift in the atmosphere. Seizing the moment, Caleb dashed to the smoking console. His fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power and stabilizing the damaged systems. All the while, he kept a wary eye on Theros and her companions. They remained still, watching his every move with rapt attention. As the alarms quieted and the smoke began to clear, Caleb found himself at a crossroads. The immediate danger had passed, but the larger issues remained unpurposed. The Caitians' desperation, the potential long-term effects of human pheromones on their species, the diplomatic powder keg waiting outside. All these factors swirled in Caleb's mind. He turned to face Theros, acutely aware that his next words and actions could shape the future of human-Caitian relations for generations to come. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, as heavy as the alien world's gravity. "Theros," Caleb began, his voice steady despite the tension thrumming through his body. "Let's talk, really talk, about your people, about this situation, about finding a solution that doesn't put either of our species at risk." Theros's ears twitched forward, her tail curling around her legs as she considered his words. The other Caitians looked to her, awaiting her response. In that moment, balanced on the knife's edge between conflict and cooperation, the future hung in the balance. Theros's ears twitched, her gaze still fixed on Caleb. The air in the room felt thick with tension and unspoken possibilities. Caleb took a deep breath, preparing to navigate the delicate situation before him. "I appreciate your willingness to talk, Theros," Caleb said, his voice calm and measured. "Let's start with—" A sudden burst of sparks from the damaged console interrupted him, followed by a high-pitched whine. The other Caitians bristled, their tails lashing in agitation. Theros's eyes widened, her pupils dilating, as the sudden noise triggered a resurgence of her earlier aggressive state. Caleb's mind raced. He needed to act fast to prevent the situation from unraveling. "Theros, focus on my voice," he said, speaking in a low, soothing tone. "The noise is just the damaged equipment. It's not a threat." As he spoke, Caleb moved slowly towards the malfunctioning console, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. His fingers flew over the controls, bypassing damaged circuits and rerouting power. The whine subsided, replaced by the soft hum of machinery coming back online. With the immediate crisis averted, Caleb turned back to Theros. He noticed a change in her demeanor. Her aggression had subsided, replaced by a more docile attitude. The other Caitians mirrored her calmer state, their fur settling and tails stilling. "Now, Theros," Caleb said, seizing the opportunity, "you mentioned something about your people facing extinction. Can you tell me more about that?" Theros padded closer, her movements graceful despite the lingering tension in her muscles. "Our species is dying, human," she said, her voice a low purr tinged with sadness. "A genetic mutation plagues us, robbing us of our ability to bear young. We were sent here as part of a secret breeding program to study human physiology in hopes of finding a solution." Caleb's eyebrows rose in surprise. This information changed everything. "And my scent triggered something in you?" Theros nodded, her tail curling around her legs. "Your pheromones awakened something primal in us, intensifying our mating instincts beyond our control. We never meant to cause harm, but the urge was overwhelming." As Theros spoke, Caleb's communicator buzzed. Dr. Lyra's voice came through, tinged with excitement and concern. "Sergeant, I'm detecting unusual changes in both your and the Caitians' physiologies. It seems prolonged exposure to each other's pheromones is causing a symbiotic adaptation in your hormonal systems. This could be groundbreaking, but it also poses potential risks." Caleb's mind whirled with the implications. A potential solution to the Caitian fertility crisis, but at what cost? And how would this affect human-Caitian relations? Before he could respond, a commotion outside caught his attention. Through the facility's windows, he saw a growing crowd of human colonists. At their head stood a burly man with a shock of red hair. Garrett, a local miner known for his xenophobic views. The man's face was contorted in anger as he shouted, his words muffled by the thick glass, but his intent clear. Commander Reeves' voice crackled over the communicator. "Murphy, things are getting hot out here. Garrett's riling up the colonists, claiming the Caitians are here to steal our genetic material. I'm doing my best to keep things under control, but we need a resolution fast." Caleb took a deep breath, weighing his options. The situation was balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move could spark an interstellar incident, but there was also an opportunity here, a chance to potentially save an entire species and revolutionize human-Caitian relations. He made his decision. "Theros," he said, meeting her feline gaze, "I have a proposal. Dr. Lyra believes our pheromones are causing changes in both our physiologies. If you're willing, I suggest we conduct a controlled experiment, limited physical contact to study these effects. It could provide crucial data for solving your people's fertility crisis." Theros's ears perked up, her tail twitching with interest. "You would do this, despite the risks?" Caleb nodded. "It's a risk, yes, but one with the potential for enormous benefits. What do you say?" As Theros considered his words, Caleb's communicator buzzed again. Commander Reeves's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Murphy, I've contacted the Caitian ambassador, Theros' father. He's on his way to the facility now. Whatever you're planning, do it fast." Caleb relayed this information to Theros, watching as her eyes widened with surprise. "My father," she murmured, her tail lashing behind her. After a moment of hesitation, she straightened her shoulders, decision clear in her eyes. "We accept your proposal, human. Let us proceed." As Caleb and Theros prepared for their unprecedented encounter, the other Cation females watched with a mixture of curiosity and lingering agitation. The atmosphere in the room crackled with tension and anticipation. Just as they were about to initiate contact, alarms blared throughout the facility. The partially repaired communication equipment had triggered a base-wide alert. The sudden noise sent the Cations into a frenzy, their earlier calm evaporating in an instant. Theros's pupils dilated to inky pools, her fur dripping along her spine. The progress they'd made was unraveling before Caleb's eyes. He had seconds to act before the situation devolved into chaos. "Theros!" Caleb called out, his voice cutting through the cacophony of alarms and growls. "Focus on me. Remember why we're here. Remember your people." His words seemed to penetrate the haze of instinct clouding Theros's mind. Her gaze locked onto his, a flicker of recognition sparking in her eyes. Slowly, painfully, she fought against the tide of her own biology. Caleb knew he had to act now, before the moment passed. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, closing the distance between them. The fate of two species hung in the balance as his hand reached out towards Theros, the first deliberate human-Cation contact in this new, uncharted territory. As their fingertips neared, the air seemed to crackle with potential energy. Outside, the crowd's angry shouts grew louder. Somewhere in the facility, the Cation ambassador was approaching, and in this room, surrounded by the blare of alarms and the watchful eyes of the other Cations, Caleb and Theros stood on the precipice of a moment that could change everything. Everything. The moment Caleb's fingers made contact with Theros's fur-covered hand, a jolt of energy coursed through both of them. Their eyes locked, a silent understanding passing between human and Cation. But before either could fully process the implications of this unprecedented contact, the blaring alarms shattered the moment. Theros's pupils dilated once more, her body tensing as if ready to pounce. The other Cation females began to pace, their tails lashing aggressively. Caleb knew he had to act fast to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. "Stay with me, Theros," he said, maintaining eye contact as he slowly backed away. His mind raced, searching for a solution. Then he spotted it, the facility's main control panel, tucked away in a corner of the room. Moving with deliberate calm, Caleb made his way to the panel. His fingers flew over the controls, bypassing security protocols with the override codes he'd memorized during his mission briefing. With a final keystroke, the alarms fell silent. The sudden quiet was almost as jarring as the noise had been. Caleb turned to see Theros and the other Cations frozen in place, their ears twitching as they adjusted to the absence of sound. "This way," Caleb said softly, gesturing towards a corridor leading deeper into the facility. "I know a place where we can continue without interruptions." Theros hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She signaled to the other Cations, and they fell in line behind her as Caleb led them through the winding hallways. They arrived at a conference room, its walls lined with sound-dampening material. Caleb quickly adjusted the lighting, dimming it to a soft glow that he hoped would be more comfortable for Cation eyes. He also lowered the room's temperature, knowing the feline-like aliens preferred cooler environments. As the Cations settled into the room, Caleb's communicator buzzed. He stepped into a corner to answer it, keeping one eye on Theros and her companions. "Murphy," Commander Reeves's voice came through, tense but controlled. "I've just received word from the Cation ambassador. He's not happy, but he's willing to listen. He's granted conditional approval for your experiment, pending oversight from a Cation scientific team." Caleb exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. "That's good news, sir. When can we expect the team to arrive?" "They're en route now, ETA 1 hour. In the meantime, keep things under control in there. Reeves out." As Caleb turned back to the room, he noticed Theros watching him intently. Her earlier aggression had faded, replaced by a look of curiosity and something else, something he couldn't quite identify. "Your father has given us permission to proceed," Caleb said, addressing Theros directly. A Cation scientific team will be here soon to oversee our experiment. Theros's tail swished slowly behind her. Then we should begin, she said, her voice a low purr. Time is precious, and my people's future hangs in the balance. Caleb nodded, steeling himself for what was to come. He approached Theros slowly, extending his hand once more. This time, when their fingers touched, there was no interruption. The sensation was unlike anything Caleb had ever experienced. It was as if an electric current flowed between them, carrying with it a flood of information and emotions. He could sense Theros's desperation, her hope, her fear for her people's future, and beneath it all, a growing sense of connection to him. As they maintained contact, Caleb became aware of changes in his own body. His heart rate increased, his skin flushed, and he felt a surge of energy coursing through his veins. He glanced at Theros and saw that she too was affected. Her fur stood on end, her eyes glowed with an inner light, and her body trembled slightly. The other Cation females watched intently, their own bodies responding to the pheromones now filling the air. One by one, they began to show signs of physiological changes, subtle at first, but growing more pronounced with each passing minute. Caleb's communicator buzzed again, this time with a message from Dr. Lyra. Sergeant, I'm detecting extraordinary changes in your biochemistry. Your body is producing a unique combination of hormones and pheromones. I've never seen anything like it in human-alien interactions. This could be the key to understanding the Cation's sudden biological shift. As Caleb processed this information, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. One of the Cation females, her eyes wide and unfocused, had broken away from the group. She moved with purpose towards a computer terminal in the corner of the room. With a start, Caleb realized her intention. She was trying to access the facility's communication array, likely to transmit news of their discovery to the Cation homeworld. Caleb found himself torn. The experiment with Theros was yielding incredible results, potentially holding the key to saving her species. But allowing unauthorized communication could have far-reaching diplomatic consequences. Before he could decide how to act, a new alarm sounded, different from the earlier klaxons. This one was accompanied by the sound of heavy metal shutters slamming into place over the windows and doors. Commander Reeves's voice came over the facility-wide communication system. Attention all personnel. Due to escalating tensions outside, we are initiating a full lockdown. All exterior access points are now sealed. Maintain your positions and await further instructions. As the implications of this announcement sank in, Caleb became aware of a subtle change in the air. It felt thinner somehow. A quick glance at the environmental control panel confirmed his fears. The life support systems, damaged in the earlier chaos, were beginning to fail. Caleb took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had to maintain the experiment with Theros, prevent unauthorized communication, manage the increasingly unstable group dynamics, and now find a way to repair the life support systems before they all ran out of air. As he contemplated his next move, Caleb realized that the decisions he made in the coming hours would have consequences far beyond this crisis. The fate of human-Cation relations, the survival of an alien species, and the lives of everyone trapped in the facility now rested on his shoulders. With a sense of relentless drive, Caleb turned to face the challenges ahead, knowing that the true test of his skills and character was only just beginning. With a sense of relentless drive, Caleb turned to face the challenges ahead, knowing that the true test of his skills and character was only just starting. The thinning air in the room was becoming increasingly noticeable. Caleb's trained instincts kicked in as he assessed the most immediate threat. We need to stabilize the life support systems, he announced, his voice cutting through the tension. Everyone, listen carefully. Caleb quickly organized the human technicians present, assigning them specific tasks to repair the air recycling units. Johnson, focus on the primary filtration system. Zhang, I need you on the backup generators. We can't afford any power fluctuations right now. As the technicians scrambled to their positions, Caleb kept a watchful eye on the Cation females. The one who had attempted to access the communication array still lingered near the terminal, her tail twitching with nervous energy. Theros, seeming calmer after their earlier interaction, approached Caleb. How can I assist? She asked, her feline eyes reflecting a mix of concern and perseverance. Caleb nodded towards the other Cations. Can you help manage your compatriots? We need everyone calm and cooperative. Understanding flashed across Theros's features. She turned to the Cation female near the communication array, speaking in low, urgent tones. Caleb couldn't understand the words, but he recognized the authoritative timbre in Theros's voice as she leveraged her position as the ambassador's daughter. The effect was almost immediate. The other Cation's posture relaxed, her ears flattening slightly in what Caleb interpreted as acquiescence. She stepped away from the terminal, rejoining the group. Caleb returned his attention to the life support repairs. The human technicians were working diligently, but he could see the strain on their faces as the oxygen levels continued to drop. Johnson fumbled with a delicate component, nearly dropping it. Easy there, Caleb said, steadying Johnson's hand. Let's implement a rotation system. 20 minutes of work, then 10 minutes of rest. It'll help conserve oxygen and keep our minds sharp. As the repairs progressed, Caleb found himself hyper-aware of the Cation's presence. Their scent seemed more potent now, a complex mixture of musk and something undefinably alien. He noticed subtle changes in their appearance, fur taking on a slight sheen, eyes seeming to glow with increased intelligence. Hours passed in a haze of focused work and mounting tension. Finally, with a series of clicks and a low hum, the life support systems stabilized. A collective sigh of relief passed through the room as fresher air began to circulate. Caleb wiped sweat from his brow, feeling the toll of the prolonged exposure to the Cation pheromones. His senses felt sharper, his mind racing with new connections and insights. Theros approached him, her movements fluid and purposeful. Caleb blinked in surprise. The changes in her were more pronounced now. Her fur had taken on an iridescent quality, shimmering slightly in the dim light. Her eyes, always intelligent, now seemed to hold depths of wisdom beyond her years. Caleb, she said, her voice carrying a new resonance. We need to talk. Something is happening to us. To all of us. Before Caleb could respond, alarms blared once again. The facility's security monitors flashed red, showing multiple breach points along the outer perimeter. Garrett's people, Caleb muttered, recognizing the angry faces of the human protesters. On another screen, he saw a group of Cations in scientific attire attempting to override a security panel. The situation was escalating rapidly. Caleb's mind raced, analyzing potential scenarios and outcomes. He turned to Theros, noting the concern in her eyes. We need to create safe zones, he said, moving towards the facility's internal security controls. I can use the building's systems to funnel them away from our location and set up choke points. As Caleb worked, he became aware of a new sensation. The Cation female's body language, once foreign and inscrutable, now seemed to convey clear messages. He found himself instinctively understanding their concerns, their readiness to act. With a series of commands, Caleb activated security barriers and redirected the facility's internal guidance systems. He turned to address the group, his plan formed. Listen up, he said, his voice carrying a new note of authority. We're about to have company from multiple directions. Theros, I need you and your people to... The sound of shattering glass interrupted him. Shouts echoed through the corridors. Human voices filled with anger and fear, mingling with the lower tones of the Cation scientific team. Caleb moved to stand protectively in front of Theros and the other Cation females. He could feel the changes in his own body now, heightened senses, quicker reflexes, a deep connection to the aliens behind him. As footsteps approached their location, Caleb steadied himself. The next few moments would determine not just their immediate fate, but potentially the future of human-Cation relations. He glanced at Theros, seeing his own drive mirrored in her eyes. The door to their secure area shuddered under a heavy impact. Caleb tensed, ready to face whatever came through. As the metal began to buckle, he knew that every skill he'd learned, every connection he'd formed, would be put to the ultimate test. As the metal door buckled under the relentless assault, Caleb's mind shifted into high gear. He tapped into the facility's security system through a nearby terminal, his fingers flying across the keypad with newfound precision. Everyone, move, he commanded, his voice carrying an authority that surprised even him. We need to get to a more secure location. Theros nodded, her luminescent fur casting a soft glow in the dimly lit room. She quickly gathered the other Cation females, who moved with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. Caleb led the group through a series of corridors, activating security barriers as they passed. The facility's layout unfurled in his mind like a three-dimensional map, allowing him to navigate the complex with uncanny accuracy. As they reached a reinforced chamber deep within the facility, Caleb's communicator crackled to life. Commander Reeves's voice came through, tinged with urgency. "Sergeant, we've deployed peacekeepers to contain Garrett's group. They won't breach your position, but we've got other problems. The Cation scientific team is making their way inside." Caleb's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of footsteps, approaching from multiple directions. He quickly ushered the Cation females into the secure room, noting the intensifying glow of their fur. Theros's eyes met his, a silent understanding passing between them. Just as Caleb sealed the door, a familiar voice called out from down the corridor. "Sergeant Thompson!" He turned to see Dr. Lyra hurrying towards him, her lab coat billowing behind her. Her eyes widened as she took in his appearance. "The changes, they're progressing faster than we anticipated," she said, her voice a mix of awe and concern. "We need to talk." Inside the secure room, Dr. Lyra quickly set up her equipment, her movements betraying a sense of urgency. She ran a series of scans on Caleb and the Cation females, her brow furrowing as she analyzed the results. "The pheromone interaction has triggered a rapid evolutionary response in the Cations," she explained, gesturing to the holographic display. "It's potentially solving their fertility crisis, but the process is highly unstable. If we don't manage this carefully, the consequences could be severe." Caleb absorbed the information, his enhanced mind processing the implications at lightning speed. Before he could respond, the facility's communication system crackled to life. "This is Dr. Marok of the Cation Scientific Council," a stern voice announced. "We demand access to the Cation subjects immediately." Caleb exchanged a glance with Theros, whose ears had flattened against her head at the sound of Marok's voice. He made a decision. "Dr. Marok, this is Sergeant Caleb Thompson," he responded, his voice steady. "We're dealing with a delicate situation here. The subjects have undergone significant biological changes. We need to proceed with caution." There was a pause before Marok replied, his tone slightly less aggressive. "Explain these changes, Sergeant." As Caleb detailed the situation, he became aware of a growing connection with Theros. Her thoughts seemed to flow into his mind, providing insights into Cation biology and culture that he couldn't possibly have known. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in a red glow. Caleb's enhanced senses immediately detected the change in air pressure as the ventilation system faltered. "The power grid is failing," he announced, moving swiftly to a control panel. "We need to reroute power now, or we'll lose all security measures." Working in tandem with the human technicians, Caleb's fingers danced across the controls. His newfound abilities allowed him to intuitively understand the complex power systems, making connections that would have been impossible before. As they worked, Caleb became aware of a commotion outside. Through the facility's surveillance system, he saw Garrett and a small group of protesters forcing their way past the peacekeepers. "Dr. Marok," Caleb called out through the comm system. "We have a situation. Human protesters have entered the facility. We need to prevent a confrontation between your team and theirs." Caleb's mind raced, formulating a plan. He quickly accessed the facility's layout, creating a series of checkpoints that would funnel both groups away from each other and away from the secure room. As he implemented his strategy, Caleb noticed something strange. The human technicians around him seemed sharper, more focused. One of them, who had cut his hand earlier, now showed no sign of injury. "Dr. Lyra," Caleb called, "I think the pheromones are affecting everyone in the facility. The changes are spreading." Dr. Lyra's eyes widened as she ran scans on the technicians. "You're right. This is unprecedented. The implications—" Her words were cut off by a loud bang from outside. Garrett's voice could be heard, shouting demands and threats. Caleb took a deep breath, his enhanced mind processing multiple streams of information simultaneously. The power grid was stabilizing, but the biological changes were spreading faster than anticipated. The Cation scientists and human protesters were on a collision course, and the situation was rapidly spiraling beyond the confines of the facility. He turned to Theros, their newfound telepathic link humming with shared purpose. "We need to find a way to manage this on a larger scale," he said, his voice low and determined. "What we do next could reshape everything, not just for your people and mine, but potentially for the entire galaxy." Theros nodded, her luminescent fur pulsing with an otherworldly light. "Then let us face it together," she replied, her voice resonating with newfound strength. As alarms blared and the facility shuddered under the strain of the unfolding chaos, Caleb squared his shoulders. He knew that the true test of his abilities and the future of human-Cation relations was about to begin. As alarms blared and the facility shuddered, Caleb's enhanced mind raced through potential scenarios. The situation was spiraling beyond containment, and he knew a bold move was necessary. "We need to evacuate," he announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "But not just us, everyone." Theros tilted her head, her luminescent fur pulsing with understanding. Through their newfound telepathic link, Caleb felt her agreement and support. Moving swiftly to the control panel, Caleb's fingers flew across the interface. He accessed the facility's communication systems, broadcasting his voice to all sectors. "Attention all personnel, protesters, and Cation representatives," he began, his tone calm but authoritative. "This is Sergeant Caleb Thompson. We are facing an unprecedented situation that affects both humans and Cations. I'm initiating a controlled evacuation to address this crisis on a larger scale." As he spoke, Caleb coordinated with the security systems to create safe passage routes. He guided the evolved Cation females, including Theros, to a protected area within the building. "Dr. Marok, Commander Reeves, Mr. Garrett," Caleb continued, addressing each faction directly. "I understand your concerns and objectives, but what's happening here goes beyond our individual agendas. We need a neutral party to mediate." Caleb paused, his enhanced senses picking up the subtle shifts in atmosphere as his words sank in. "I'm requesting the presence of Admiral Zhao. His expertise in interspecies relations is crucial now." Within hours, Admiral Zhao arrived, his weathered face a mask of calm as he took in the situation. A team of human and Cation medical experts flanked him, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Under Zhao's supervision, Caleb orchestrated a series of controlled interactions. He watched as human representatives cautiously approached the evolved Cations, their initial trepidation giving way to wonder. One human scientist, Dr. Elena Frost, gasped as she made contact with Theros. "It's incredible," she breathed. "I can sense her thoughts, her emotions. It's like nothing I've ever experienced." Caleb observed as Dr. Lyra and Dr. Marok huddled over data screens, their earlier animosity forgotten in the face of scientific discovery. "The pheromone-induced changes," Dr. Lyra murmured, her eyes wide. "They've created a symbiosis between human and Cation biology. This could solve the fertility crisis and so much more." As word spread, Caleb noticed a shift in the atmosphere outside the facility. Through the security feeds, he saw many of Garrett's protesters lowering their signs, their faces etched with confusion and dawning realization. Garrett himself, however, remained unmoved. Caleb's heightened senses picked up a spike of anger and desperation from the man. Moments later, alarms blared as the facility's sensors detected a foreign substance in the ventilation system. "Chemical agent detected," the automated system announced. Caleb's mind instantly connected the dots. "Garrett," he growled, already moving towards the environmental controls. He called out to the nearby technicians, "We need to isolate and neutralize this now." Working in perfect synergy, Caleb and the human technicians rerouted airflow and activated filtration systems. Caleb's enhanced understanding of the facility's infrastructure allowed him to predict and counter the spread of the chemical agent. Within minutes, the threat was contained. Admiral Zhao approached Caleb, his expression a mix of admiration and curiosity. "Impressive work, Sergeant," Zhao said. "Your actions here have demonstrated the potential of this symbiosis. I believe we have an opportunity to transform interspecies relations." Zhao outlined his proposal for a joint human-Cation research initiative. As discussions unfolded, Caleb became aware of a new sensation. His perceptions were expanding, granting him insights into both human and Cation physiology. Amidst the buzz of activity, the Cation ambassador arrived. His eyes widened as he took in the evolved Cations, particularly Theros. "This is remarkable," the ambassador said, his voice a mix of awe and concern. "But we must consider the implications for our people as a whole. Theros, all of you," he gestured to the evolved Cation females, "we need you to return to our homeworld. Your condition could be the key to solving our species' crisis." Caleb felt a pang in his chest at the ambassador's words. His bond with Theros had grown stronger, and the thought of separation was unexpectedly painful. Yet he understood the magnitude of what was at stake. As Caleb grappled with this dilemma, reports began filtering in from outside the facility. The news of the biological breakthrough had spread, sparking a mix of reactions among the human population. Some hailed it as a new era of interspecies cooperation, while others viewed it as a threat to human genetic purity. Caleb's enhanced senses picked up increased activity in orbit. Cation ships were gathering, their presence a silent statement of the gravity of the situation. With tensions rising both on the ground and in space, Caleb realized the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. His next actions would shape not just his future, or even that of the individuals involved, but potentially the entire course of human-Cation relations. He turned to Admiral Zhao and the Cation ambassador, his mind already formulating a plan. "We need to address this on a global scale," he began, his voice steady despite the enormity of what he was proposing. "And I believe I know how we can do it." Caleb took a deep breath, his enhanced mind processing the complex situation at lightning speed. He turned to Admiral Zhao and the Cation ambassador, his eyes gleaming with perseverance. "We need to show them," he said, his voice steady and clear. "Not tell, but show what this symbiosis can do." Admiral Zhao raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you propose, Sergeant?" Caleb outlined his plan for a public demonstration, his words flowing with newfound eloquence. As he spoke, Theros moved closer, her luminescent fur pulsing in agreement. Within hours, a controlled environment was set up just outside the facility. A crowd gathered, a mix of humans and Cations, their faces etched with curiosity and apprehension. Caleb stepped forward, Theros by his side. He could feel the eyes of the world upon them, knew that cameras were broadcasting this moment across both planets. "What you're about to see," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the crowd, "is not the end of our species, but a new beginning." With a nod to Dr. Lyra, Caleb allowed himself to be injected with a carefully measured dose of the symbiosis-inducing compound. The crowd gasped as his body began to change, his muscles rippling and his eyes taking on a feline glow. Theros stepped forward, her fur shimmering with an otherworldly light. Together they demonstrated their enhanced abilities. Caleb lifted weights that would have been impossible for a normal human, while Theros showcased improved agility and reflexes. But it was their mental connection that truly captivated the audience. Caleb and Theros moved in perfect synchronicity, anticipating each other's movements with uncanny precision. They solved complex mathematical equations faster than any computer, their minds working in harmony. Dr. Lyra stepped forward, presenting data on holographic screens. "The symbiosis has improved cellular regeneration," she explained, her voice filled with awe. "Injuries heal faster, diseases are fought off more effectively." As if on cue, one of the human technicians who had been affected by the pheromones earlier stepped forward. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing unblemished skin where a deep cut had been just hours before. The crowd murmured in amazement, their fear giving way to wonder. Even Garrett, who had been watching from the sidelines with a scowl, seemed taken aback. Admiral Zhao seized the moment. He stepped forward, his weathered face set with purpose. "What we've witnessed here today," he announced, "is not just a scientific breakthrough, but an opportunity for lasting peace." He outlined his proposal for a joint colony, his words painting a picture of a future where humans and Cations could live and work together in harmony. As he spoke, Caleb felt a surge of hope. This was the path forward. "I volunteer," Caleb said, his voice ringing out clear and strong, "to lead this colonization effort alongside Theros." Theros stepped forward, her eyes meeting Caleb's. Through their bond, he felt her agreement, her excitement for this new adventure. Their decisions seemed to break a dam. Others began to step forward, humans and Caitians alike, volunteering to be part of this new beginning. Over the next few weeks, preparations for the colony began in earnest. Caleb worked tirelessly with Dr. Lyra and Dr. Mayrock, developing a safe method to induce controlled evolutionary changes in volunteers. The day of departure arrived with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Caleb stood at the loading bay of the colony ship, Theros by his side. They watched as human and Caitian colonists boarded together, their differences set aside in pursuit of a shared future. As the ship prepared for launch, Caleb felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Garrett, his face a mix of emotions. "I was wrong," Garrett said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What you're doing here, it's bigger than all of us." Caleb nodded, accepting the olive branch for what it was. As Garrett turned to leave, Caleb called out, "It's not too late to join us." Garrett paused, considering. For a moment, Caleb thought he might accept. But then Garrett shook his head. "Someone needs to stay behind to tell your story." With that, he walked away. As the colony ship lifted off, cheers erupted from both humans and Caitians watching from the ground. Caleb and Theros stood at a viewport, watching as their old world grew smaller. Through their bond, Caleb felt Theros' mix of excitement and nervousness. He squeezed her hand, sending a wave of reassurance through their connection. "We're making history," he said softly. Theros nodded, her fur pulsing with a soft glow. "In our future," she added. As the ship broke orbit, heading towards their new home, Caleb's enhanced mind was already racing with plans and possibilities. The colony would face challenges, he knew, but with the strength of both their species combined, he was confident they could overcome anything. The stars stretched into lines of light as the ship entered faster-than-light travel. Caleb and Theros stood watch, guardians of a new era of cooperation and understanding. Their journey was just beginning, and the future stretched out before them, full of promise and potential.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.